And as promised, for the first time on the Lorcana Villain channel in the lair, I am joined by my favourite host in the third-party Lorcana world, as it were. We have the legendary, the wonderful, you've seen him on the Club Lorcana podcast, you have seen him at DLCs, you've seen him in spaces on Twitter. We have got Jeremy Bertarino!
Woo!
Jeremy.
Yeah, great to be here.
Thank you so much for taking the time. It is currently December 23rd. My man is on vacation on an iPad at the moment. So when I reached out asking for an interview, it would have been very reasonable to go, Baker, absolutely, but give me some time. But Jeremy is like, no, I will make time. I will make this work, Baker, and we will finally have a one-on-one chat. But yeah, first of all, thank you for taking the time, Jeremy. Welcome to the lair. What do you think?
This place is amazing. And yeah, like you said, I'm in sunny Orlando, Florida right now. At the breakfast table, unironically, my girlfriend's brother looked up and was like, hey, do you want to go to Epcot today? And I was like, yeah, maybe, might as well. So yeah, it's great to be here. Finally in the lair. It feels like your setup is great. I love just screams Lorcana. So this is great. This is great for me.
But Jeremy, thank you for your time, mate. I think this is probably one of the longest coming chats and interviews in the Lorcana community. I feel like we are kind of mirrors of each other in different ways, like in respective to being like hosts of shows and products. Would you agree? Am I pushing it?
So I would define myself pretty much largely in relation to how I interact with Zan Syed, where Zan is sort of, and if you know Lorcana, you know Zan Syed, I think he's the best player, but he and I are like best of friends. So yes. To me, he is always sort of the precise kind of calculated like genius. And then I come in and make it fun. So yeah, I often see myself as like a host, sort of like almost like a radio host. That is, it's like my job to make that a really fun experience listening to Zan Syed.
Yeah, 100%, and I can relate to that in a lot of ways, like, especially with Lorcana, again, it's part of the job of as the caster and now host to sort of, like, bring that fun, and, like, for me, a DLC it's not just a TCG stream, it's a show, and it should have these emotional high and low beats and characters and all these sort of memorable moments. So, yeah, like, the long and short of it is, like, you're just someone I have an awful lot of respect for in the Lorcana community. I remember first time checking out, Zan became very well known in the community very early on. So his channel started to, like, I was never a Magic guy. I know some people will have already known about him from the past, but I don't know anything about that world. So he was a new name to me, but quickly broke onto the scene. So you start following the content, you see, oh, there's a podcast, and then it's, who's this guy that's joining Zan? And very quickly, you became one of my favorite content creators in the space. Of course, like, along with shout out to Zan, but I think what you bring to the product is, like, unmatched. It's like you say, Zan is the strategist, and you're there to bring the energy, to bring the fun, to, like, be that sort of face of the brand, and that has then gone over to Twitter, where you've got your own space, which I've been a keen listener of the entire time. As I know a lot of the community are, I think it's a pun intended, a space that people are really appreciate. So I want to start off really by just saying, like, thank you for everything you do for the community. There's probably not enough people that say it to you enough outside of your, like, personal circle. So yeah, just like as someone that prides myself on, like, I watch everything. I follow everything. Like, Lorcana is my life, my career, it's everything, and I am watching everyone's content. I am tuned into everything, and I think you are one of the heroes of the community in what you bring, and it's always done so professionally. I've heard you tackle quite serious issues as well, and do so in, like, a way that's impartial in the right ways, but you still aren't afraid to, like, give your opinion on it, but you don't make it any more. You create a safe space for these conversations to happen. So I just want to say for myself, and I'm sure I speak for a lot of others, people that listen to the space regularly, like, just thank you for everything you do for the community. And I haven't structured this interview with you very much for a specific reason. Normally, when I do, like, group podcasts, it will be very, like, we're going to talk about this, and this, just because you've got so many people that want to get, like, I want to hear from, and you've only got so long that you can fill. So I try and give it a little bit of order. When I do a one-on-one, I might give some bullet points, but then we'll sort of shoot the breeze as and when. But you're the first person that I don't think I've given any prior notes of what we're going to talk about, other than the very end where I'm going to be taking Jeremy to Glimmer Island, but we'll finish on that. Besides that, I've not given you any pointers of what we're going to talk about because I kind of just want to shoot the breeze with you. I am just I think this might be the first interview where I don't show a deck list. We will talk about Lorcana as and when it becomes like appropriate, but I kind of just want to get to know you a little bit more and like a bit of like almost the flashpoints, the most significant moments in your opinion of your life and journey that has led you to what you're doing now. And like I believe I read somewhere that you've done stand-up comedy, or like you consider yourself a comedian. So I know nothing about that side of you other than I read it somewhere. So I would be fascinated to hear all that. So it's a very open question, and I really just want to kind of throw you the ball for whether it's 5 minutes or 20 minutes, like go off, King. Just to kind of tell us like what does your life look like how long have you been a quote-unquote performer, because that is what you are, Jeremy. You're a performer. Like that's what we all are as content creators, especially if you've done comedy and stuff. So yeah, I'm just been really interested to know like what led you on this path, and like at what point did it also start to include trading card games, and then as we get closer to Lorcana coming out, we'll take a breath and go from there. But yeah, pretty open slate, but I'd love to hear it from you.
Okay, I mean, well, definitely, I think I can hit on all that stuff. I think I have a good sort of cohesive story. The first thing I want to do is really like say, I really appreciate and acknowledge the thanks that you've given me, right? It'd be weird not to leave a little bit of space for that. I want you to think of it more as a win-win, right? Like in terms of this space, that's something I've always wanted to do. In terms of what it really feels like sometimes is I'm like a morning radio DJ, which is when I was like a kid in my mom's car, I would listen to those guys and be like, that's the best job ever. And my mom would be like, well, good news, Jeremy, they're going to be popular forever. And I was like, well, then that's settled. Yeah, obviously not the way that one went. But yeah, the space is really a win-win. I love doing it. I like waking up in the morning. For me, it's the morning. For you, it's the afternoon. And just one principle that guides that space is, it's a question. What is a community? To me, a community is not necessarily a bunch of people that share the same interests. That's like an interest group. For me, a community is a group of people who care about each other. Mm-hmm. And you'll notice if you listen to the space over and over again, there's like recurring characters. There are friends, right, that have grown through the community, because in my mind, the space is the best way for people to get to know each other and get to care about each other, so that we can really embody the philosophy of community, and not just this like sort of more corporate definition of community, which is like, oh, you guys are definitely in a community because you all buy the same product. It's like, well, no, we're actually in a community because we like talk to each other. And when you said like you tackle controversial issues, to me, that's like another part of it. That we talk to each other, and when there's a problem, we're all invested not in watching it. We're not watching a train crash. We're asking each other, as people that like have started to care about each other, how do we want to solve this problem? What are our steps forward? And what are the constructive questions to be asking that make us care about this more? I am somebody who like can envision the community being more than we all watch the same thing and buy the same product. And I think the space does two things really well. One, it lets me be that morning radio DJ host, which is selfish, but whatever. I get to win sometimes. And that's what I learned in trading card games. And the other one is it lets us build this community with each other in a real sense. So that's where the space kind of came about. So I really appreciate you saying thank you for the space, but I want you to know that it's very much like a win all around. I win, community wins, other content creators win. So that's really what I want to do. I think a useful way to figure out who I am is to just talk about kind of the beginning of my trading card game journey. And then when we do that, I'll try to interweave how I got into stand-up. Although I will say, like a lot of people who do stand-up comedy and do this performing, for example, when I say do this performing, I was just working at the Renaissance Festival. My job was I was up in a stockade. I would insult people that like walked by and they could pay to throw tomatoes at me. And I had like a couple different like Ren Fair employees come up and be like, I think you're the best person to ever do this. I mean, I'm just really like getting in a space where I could do those. But so there's like an entertainer in me. So I think that when I do stand-up comedy and when I do stuff like that. People walk up to me and they're like, how long you been in stand-up? You're really good. You know, even sometimes it happens in my hometown, embarrassingly enough, because if I fall down the Lorcana rabbit hole, I don't go out to as many open mics. And then a few months pass by and I go back and it's all different people. And they're like, where did you come from? And I'm like, it took a card game break. They wouldn't know about it. But so there's always been that, like, I want to entertain people. I want to be a big talk guy. I think you probably have a lot of the same instincts of like, I love it. I love shaking people's hands, getting to know them. And I think we both kind of have the voice for it of like, hi, welcome to the, welcome to the show, everybody.
But as you put it well already, like the radio voice. But yeah, I mean, it comes through just in the way you host the space and like on Zan's podcast. Like a lot of these, I mean, it would be for any sort of performer in front of a live audience, but definitely a stand-up comedian. Knowing when to fill the space if someone's not going to talk, knowing how to sort of like weave the energy. You're the sort of person who I could absolutely imagine like doing my job.
Yeah, it's a similar skill set. So when you say we're a mirror of each other, I think that's what we're picking up on is we're both the kind of person that can like make an audience cheer and knows how to make sometimes in trading card games, especially, you're like announcing somebody that just won a tournament and we'll just say like, come on out, Edward White. And some guy walks out that their job is like maybe just like they sit behind a desk all day. They're really not here to put on a show. Yeah. They're here to win. I call them like killers. They're like, and you have to make that exciting and you have to teach the audience like, hey, this like could be you. And in a lot of ways is you. So this guy is exciting. Even if that guy is like not trying to answer interview questions in a fun way, you'd be like, what was your most fun interaction? And he'll be like, yeah, in game 3 of match 5, I drew 2 Sisus in a row, which allowed me to turn my clock from a 2-turn clock to a 3-turn clock. And my opponent actually would have won if they had been able to quest. And you're like, oh, dang it. Like, I really wanted a more explosive answer. And then, like, you and I kind of understand, like, what that job is and how it can be and how to make that person, I don't want to say look special, because I really do think that they are so special and integral, but how to let the audience know that person's actually really cool.
How to bring that to the surface in them, like to put the spotlight on what's already there, but they may just not be as used to showing. That's the way I look at all casting, right? Like I'm here to, all casters are here to show you for the star that you already are, and like just help with the presentation of that. So yeah, I completely agree.
So let's talk a little bit about how I got into trading card games. And then full disclosure, in 2019, I was a fully professional Magic the Gathering player. So I think there's a big question mark there. How does that happen? To me, that's like, what? Like when and how did that happen? So let's just start in 2010. I learned to play Magic the Gathering at a friend's house. For those of you that are like fans of Magic the Gathering, my friend gave me a green-white deck, and he played a ramp deck. He played a Platinum Angel against me, which is a card that says you can't win the game, or you can't lose the game, and your opponents can't win the game. And I was like instantly hooked on trading card games, because it's the kind of card that like rocks your foundation. This has to be the best card ever, right? And then you learn about it, and it's like, well, no, it's actually bad, because in Lorcana terms, if it just gets dragon fired, you're done, right? It just doesn't do anything, and it has quite a small body. So I'm like hooked on Magic the Gathering pretty much after the first time I played it. I start going to a local game store, and kind of awakens a competitive side of me, because I was never really that athletic, and academics I was always very good at, but not necessarily interested in competing in, if that makes a lot of sense. But I always really liked video games. So now finally it's like I can sit down across from somebody. We like battle. We try our hardest, and then one of us wins. So like a fire got ignited in me, and I was like 15 at the time. So like within the next year, I would drive to like a town that's a military base that was only like 45 minutes away. They would have like $25 entry, $400 to first place cash tournaments. And I like started winning those. So like as a 15, 16-year-old, I was like, yeah, well, my job kind of is to beat U.S. soldiers in Magic the Gathering, right? It's like sort of my like punky little job. Sure. So I always really liked that aspect of it, and I liked Magic the Gathering, but I think my first love was definitely stand-up comedy. There was an awesome comedy club in my hometown of Wilmington, North Carolina called the Dead Crow, and there wasn't a lot going on in that town. So unlike everywhere else in the world, you could go and do an open mic night, and have an audience of like 40, 50, 60 people watching you do stand-up comedy, even if it's for the first time. And so that's sort of the first taste I had of like, oh, wow, the stage. And I was killing it. And like, you know, my riffs would do better than my jokes because I was like mostly just a kid when I started. I think I started doing stand-up comedy when I was 20, but I didn't want to be too young doing it. So I started doing it when I was 20. I should have started sooner, but I started when I was 20. And that's where I like really got this like sense of like, oh yeah, I can like make people laugh, and it fills that fills
like
that hole, whatever.
You feel like a puppeteer with their emotions. And
yeah,
I feel you, man.
And like sometimes my jokes, I think as like a young person, and this is not uncommon, were pretty much just horrible. They were like a mix of like, I think this is an edgy thing to say, or like here's just like a word play. But then I would like get like a little laugh and then just do faces at the audience and like sit in that silence until like the whole crowd was roaring. Like that's like how, you know, that's how we did it. Mm-hmm. So what happened? Why did I transition to being a pro trading card game player? So my life's plan was always to go to law school and become a lawyer. Mm-hmm. I get into a law school. I actually have a full ride scholarship because it's a historically Black college, and they gave me a minority scholarship. Hey, useful hack if any American kids are watching this is that the HBCUs, if you are a minority to them, you can get a good scholarship. Nice. So I was in law school, and unfortunately at that time my dad left the family and left the country kind of just like abruptly, and so I had to take a lot of time off to go help my mom, maybe help get the house ready to be sold, or just sort of be there with my mom. Of course. And unfortunately, in response to that, I take full responsibility for this, but unfortunately I did fail out of law school in response to that. Mm-hmm. And so my life kind of hit a point where like something was going to happen, something like bad. It's like, yeah, this is where a lot of people describe like getting into addictions or something like that, because I wasn't fully in control of my life. And then you're going to love this. Enter Zan Syed. Mm-hmm. My roommate at the time is a Magic the Gathering player professionally, and the owner of his team's name is Zan Syed. So we meet up one weekend in Atlanta at an Atlanta card game tournament, and we hit it off. We both think that the other one is so cool. I mean, we were just both like, this is the coolest guy, you know? And he thinks that. I didn't know that at the time, but
isn't
he thinks
that cool?
I think that.
Isn't that awesome when you have that with someone like super early, just like everything from the introduction just ticks all the boxes, and you're like, you're gonna be my best friend, but also like you wanna be cool. You don't wanna like.
It was very like, he was like, oh yeah,
cool
dude,
were
sweet,
you? Is the question. Were you both like, oh, I really like this guy, but I don't wanna make him think I'm weird. Were you being coy? I need to know.
There was a little bit of that. Zan is the type of guy that feels a little. First of all, I think one of the kindest and most accepting guys to come up and talk to. But he feels a little inaccessible. There's like a royalty element to Zan where it's like, is now a good time to go up and talk to him? He's not busy, is he? You know what I mean? That's like, I think Zan kind of has that, and I sort of felt that at the beginning. But you know this, and hopefully a lot of people watching know this. But trading card game tournaments are like a fantastic shortcut to getting to know somebody fast. Mm-hmm. If you go to 2 or 3 of the like dinners that happen on Saturday night with somebody,
your family,
you're almost as close as if you had spent 3 years. Yeah, you're definitely closer than 3 years as coworkers, but almost 3 years as like good friends. It's like wild. So it gets to the point where he learns about my situation, having recently failed out of law school, et cetera, et cetera. He's also seen me play a lot. And so he's like, well, why don't you just do like basically what, you know, be good at Magic the Gathering, and that's your job. You're good enough. And I was like, yeah, I'm good enough, but it's one of those things where I couldn't afford to travel and I couldn't change my deck every week, right? I like had my deck, and that's the one that I played, and I was good at it, and I got a lot of wins, but like, was it always the best thing to be doing in the metagame? Like, probably not. I think an equivalent to Lorcana would be like, if I only had blue-green built, there would be some weekends where purple was just the best deck, but I'd have to sort of shrug my shoulders and go, yeah, but it's blue-green because those are the cards I have. So I let him know that was like my situation. And then we struck this like insane deal that you're never going to hear about again. And you have never heard about since. And the deal was, he was like, so I'll pay for everything. I'll put a deck in your hand every weekend. You're going to come with me to all the tournaments around the United States. And I'll pay for the trip and the food and everything. And in return, I'll buy all your equity. So everything that you win, you just give to me. But you get to come on these trips. You get to try to be a name in this space. And that deal is horrible for Zan Syed. The average trading card game player loses between $300 to $1,000 every trip that they go on. That's anecdotal statistics for you. But I was like, yeah, let's do it. All right, deal. And I ended up, that first tournament where we were doing that deal, I ended up winning. It was a team tournament. It was an open, a Star City Games Open in Pittsburgh. And I won. I got first place. And I was like so happy because I like shipped that check to Zan. And I was like, yeah, look, if I ever did have a shot, I really could have been number one out here. And we laughed and joked, but then it just kept happening. And I like started almost breaking records, right? I have like 6 Star City Games Open top 8s in one season, where most people get like 6 lifetime. It was really a crazy season. I ended the season number 1 on the leaderboard. So Zan ended up making a ton of money over this deal, which I'm really happy about. But that was sort of the beginning of like, oh, I'm gonna be like trading card games are something I can take pretty seriously, and I am like good enough to hang with the best. So let's play. And that was kind of the beginning of mine and Zan's relationship. And then we got into a bunch of just sort of like other things. We launched a failed trading card game startup company at one point together. We've kind of been through everything. We've had fights, we've had, makeups or whatever. And so now we just have an ironclad friendship that is like unlike any other. There's almost like an element of, if we play together in a tournament, all of our other friends are like, is this going to be the time where they finally play? Mm-hmm. But like, we'll like look at each other and I'll be like, it's time for you to win. Or he'll be like, this time I think it's better for you. And we'll just like concede to each other. And they're like, when are you guys going to play? And we're like, we don't really, we play for fun all the time and people love those games, but we don't really need to play a lot of the times in a tournament. So like, we're like tight in that regard. Mm-hmm. And so we're both kind of in a later stage in our life when Lorcana comes out. We're both entering into our 30s. It's kind of time to start thinking about settling into more stable careers. It's time to start thinking of all this. And I'm pestering him because I pester my friends. And I'm like, well, what about this new game, Disney Lorcana, that just came out? And he's like, I'm not really trying to get into another trading card game. And I'm like, yeah, but think about all these pros. This one's like going to have backing of Disney. So winning it can make you like bigger than winning at Magic the Gathering, right? This is before the game came out. I was like, imagine if like you get to go and be on a parade float at Disney World for being the world champion, sure. Et cetera, all these things that Lorcana represented in terms of possibility. And I was like, and I think the cards are going to hold their value really well. And Sam was like, all right, I'll try it. So we go to a Lorcana 1K when the first set comes out. This is like a super not underground. I mean, it's just at a local game store, but we go to a couple tournaments. Zan's winning all of them. And he goes, wow, this is like fixes all my problems with trading card games. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah. And he was like, you want to start a podcast? And I was like, let's do it. And so we started.
That's such a bro typical response. Like, yo, we just found something cool. Want to start a podcast? And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. It's just an bit of observational comedy.
It was funny. It was fun. And like, but I think the kernel of truth there is that he knew that like, oh yeah, we could run with this. You know what I mean? Like right now, Kawa has just sort of, maybe this is dating us and this won't be an interview you can watch forever, but the Podcana guys just kind of hung it up because Kawa got another job. And like, it's like, maybe, I don't know but I think the Club Lorcana podcast is just the biggest one right now. And we sort of knew that like, this is something we wanted to spend a lot of time on and be members of the community of. And so like him saying want to start a podcast is pretty funny because like bros in 2020 at the time 3 really do just be starting podcasts over whatever. But also we both thought it was a genuinely good idea.
Yeah, and that it was purpose. Yeah. It wasn't the cliche. It was like, we're going to put thought into this and see it through. Yeah. And we decided on a couple principles. At this point, you're gonna hear it a lot in this interview. Me saying like the first principles we started from are, and that's because that's like how I've found a good way to like have purpose.
One that we wanted to do with our podcast is we never wanted to let perfect get in the way of good. So if you watch our early episodes, it's like grainy film. You can barely hear the audio. And if you watch now, we're like in a studio, you know, it looks so much better.
The level up was crazy, to be honest. But it's crazy to think back now, like the level up to what you have now, which is incredible studio.
Thank you. And yeah, I mean, it's just a result of, you know, we got a couple sponsors, and we, you know, now our fun hobby project started to have a budget. And so it's like, oh, well, how do we want to use the budget? You know, and that's sort of flowed logically from there. But yeah, I appreciate it. We found a guy in Atlanta that has a studio, and he wants to be like our main guy, our main producer. And so we're using his studio right now. Shout out to him. His name's Fabio, Go Studios Atlanta. Yeah, and it's all sort of, you know, kind of come from there. So that's sort of like who I am. And so if you see me, you're like, why is he playing trading card games? Why is it so serious for him? There was that moment where it was like, oh, something is going to happen in this gentleman's life, whether it's really good or really bad. And I got lucky. In that moment, I met Zan Syed, and we started becoming like serious trading card game people and also best friends. And that's sort of, I think, does that answer the question of like where I came from and what my deal is in a way that you like find acceptable?
Absolutely. And like before we go too much further on, I actually want to draw on some of the things you've said across that time. Again, I don't want to talk too much because I want to let you cook, but at the same time, like there's things that I can respond. There are things that I can talk about associated with my experience that you may be able to kind of relate to more than necessarily other people. Like you talked about growing, like discovering stand-up comedy. I also have those memories of like when I was young. Grew up just myself with a mum. I had everything I needed, and then when it came to like gaming and like entertainment, I would get as much as she could afford, essentially. And like one thing we had a lot of was videotapes. And I've told the story before, like a lot of Disney. That's what got me on a Disney train. And hey, people bursting out into song to express an emotion, I find quite entertaining. I might make that my whole personality. But the next thing that we started getting videotapes for was stand-up comedy. People like Joe Pasquale and Lee Evans and Billy Connolly, like super old school comedians I'm talking about now, and just fell in love with it. And those were like really regular re-watches, just over and over again. And to go even further into that, you talked about like that leading into the chances to kind of do immersive theatre. You said recently your job was to like annoy people and let them throw rotten fruit at you. Again, I did a lot of scare acting, which is like immersive theatre, so I understand that rush. And like again, the more you say, the more kind of mirror images I'm seeing, even more than I originally thought. And then as you started to talk about getting into Magic and how Zan was funding and supplementing your ability to play, mine is very similar. I started with Yu-Gi-Oh! When I was about 13, 14, just playing in the garden. And then I went to a tournament at one of the major cities near me. Met a guy called Paul. If you're watching, Paul, shout out to you, my friend, who he invited me onto his team, and we basically had a similar arrangement of like, I'm going to pay for you to all your like all these events, because he was someone that was he was a grinder. Like every weekend he was at an event if there was something on, and like 90% of the time, because it was weekends, obviously I'm still in school at this point, because it was weekends and I didn't really have honestly friends and much of a life, I dedicated my weekends. He agreed, like, I'm going to pay for your trips, I'm going to pay your food, I'm going to put, like, he had multiple play sets of, like, he was the runner of a team. He was supplementing a few people. I wasn't the only one, but he gave me that opportunity to kind of like, at that kind of like 14, 15, moody kid, never really felt like you've had a friend or a place to belong, always been a bit of a like weird kid, or never really found your place. Like that was a place for me, like among TCG players, and like that having a much more positive effect on my sort of like mid to late teenage years, where I could have gone easily a very different way. So I relate to that very much as well. So yeah, like the more you talk, it's just like the more kind of mirror images I see, and like almost appreciate you even more. So I thank you for that breakdown. It sounds like there was a lot of trials and tribulations in that as well. But this is a very hard question to ask so openly, but like, are you happy with the way things panned out? Could you imagine yourself now if you had completed law school and how different your life would be? I know it's hard to say because you have no idea what your life would look like if that had happened, but do you ever ponder on that?
I'm not Yes, I'm not super happy with like the state of the legal justice system and the legal profession in the United States.
Okay.
And I think even early on in law school, I was very much fighting against that. So I think if you picture the sort of United States public defender as somebody who's like overworked, they have 1,000 cases a week or whatever, and they're just like trying their best to help anybody, but often they just can't. And then that sort of drives them into this dark depression. I think that caricature of a person is almost exactly who I would have been. So in a way, I'm really saved from that. And I feel happy in my day-to-day life. You know, I could have a little more money, but I think that's sort of everybody. And I try not to dwell on it too much. So I'm happy with how it all worked out. And yeah, I mean, you know, I guess just sometimes it hurts and is hard, but whatever. What are you going to do?
It's character building. That's the most positive way I can think about it. And hey, again, not to get too much into like the malicious, mean, and miserable. But you know, I similar to how you were saying, again, going back to when you started playing Magic, and it was that point in your life where it like things could have gone a different way.
Yeah.
Lorcana did that for me, right? Like I already said, you know, a card game kind of saved me in my teens from like maybe getting in the wrong crowds and kind of like rebelling to a point of who knows how far it would go. And then when I got to my early 30s, I've spent nearly 10, like post-graduation, nearly 10 years of my life dedicated to, I'm going to be a performer. I don't know if I'm going to be on theatre, or maybe I'll do film, maybe I'll do mocap for video games or voiceover. I don't know, but I'm going to be a performer, and I'm going to chase that as long as I can. Okay, so I need to take sacrifices. That means like I'm not really going on holidays. I'm probably not getting a nice fancy new car or this, that, or the other. But I was prepared to make those sacrifices, right? Because I wanted it that much. And then you get to a point where I move home, start looking after my mum full time, which again, it's my honor to do that. But then your career comes to a complete standstill. And I was 32 thinking, nothing's worked out. Like I have no savings behind me. I have like, you know, I've had some good memories and some great adventures and things that I've been on, but that's not going to help me survive the next 20, 30, however many years of life, right? So Lorcana really saved me in many, many respects. So I'm with you where like, you know, could have more money. We're not financially secure yet. There's still a journey to go on, but I'm just so grateful for the last couple of years. And a lot of that, again, is because of the community, which you are like a leader in, as far as I'm concerned. Like, I think the only thing you're missing is having ever done anything officially for Ravensburger. And I'd like to ask you about that, actually. Is this on the agenda? Is this something that you would like to do one day? Or are you kind of happier being on just the outside and being able to retain that complete, like, unbiased, etc., and I don't want that to come across the wrong way, because I try to never show a bias, and if there have ever been issues in the community that I thought serious enough, then I've called Ravensburger out and I've criticised, etc. But I think most people also understand there's a line that I have to walk, probably more so than a lot of people, right? Because of my career. Whereas if you're on the outside, you maybe don't have those restrictions. So yeah, I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'd love to preface it by saying that Ravensburger is somebody that, if they're doing their job extremely well, we almost never talk about them, right? And so people might think that there's like a negative light on Ravensburger, a negative shine to it, but I'm extremely appreciative of the game they've put together, and I think they're doing a great job managing it. That being said, I feel like I went into content creation with the idea that I was going to do it my way, because with Magic the Gathering, we really tried to be clean for Wizards of the Coast so that they would promote us and put us on, ... and then they never did. So that's fine. But so this time I was like, I'm going to do the trading card game. We're going to do it our way. We're going to make content the way we want to make content. And I think that so often that myself and Ravensburger are in alignment that it almost never comes up. But just when it comes to like recently there was a big drama in the community. It was a bit of much ado about nothing, but the core question was, how do we handle cheaters in the community, and how do we feel how do we handle it when our friends are accused of cheating, or we feel like somebody should be absolved of this, proven themselves innocent? I think were the core questions, and that was like a hairy conversation. It was like prickly, and I think that if you're dedicated to being good by Ravensburger, you just shouldn't engage in it, because it's not where they want to shine that light and shine that focus. And I think it was good that I got to sort of not worry about that. I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about. And so I think that if there's ever such a time that Ravensburger sort of wants me on, there's going to be a moment where it's like undeniable that it's like, we're going to have him or we're not. And I've made my line with them very clear. I know a lot of the people on the staff. At one point we interviewed someone on our podcast and they didn't like it. And they were like, hey, we didn't like this interview. But myself and Sam were like, well, we think it's important. We think that it's important that people see it and that they see this side, this account of everything. And we made the choice together, like, okay, we're not going to take it down. Just like we don't think that it's disparaging or besmirching or bullying. It's not harassing. All these wonderful, words that would in our minds equate to let's take it down. Mm-hmm. We sort of decided in that moment that we're going to be ourselves as content creators. And that has a lot of pros and a lot of cons. One of the pros is our audience can count on us to say what we really think. But a con is that we're probably not going to get that letter from Ravensburger that's like on the coverage team, like on the commentary, it's going to be you and Zan. Like, would we be amazing commentators? Yes, almost certainly, right? But like, there's other people doing that. It's just not the content we want to make. So I guess the answer to your question is like, I love Ravensburger. I think they do a great job, but I don't feel like sanitizing the version of myself that does content. And also, Zan and I have been independent for a long time, so we also aren't like relying on that. We don't need that. We're both in our 30s. Zan has a really good job. I always work hard, so I pay my bills because I can work hard. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, we value that, and we want to be able to make what we want to make and not have to ask permission. And so that's sort of where we are. I think Ravensburger, well, the employees all certainly seem to really like us because we're reasonable guys that are going to be in alignment with them more often than not. And we're also all card gamers, so they're all friends. And almost nobody's spoken with Ryan Miller in a winner's interview for a DLC as much as Zan Syed. So, we've talked to that guy, and I'm a really big game design fan. So I even had a moment, it was at the like sort of cocktail hour for Worlds. Yep. Ryan Miller was about to give a speech, and I look at him and I'm like, what if you like forgot what game you were doing and you went up and talked about Anachronism, which is a game that he made in like the early 2010s. Me, and he's like, now that's a name I haven't heard in a really long time. And we like kind of just shoot the breeze about Anachronism for a couple minutes. I'm like, yeah, man, this is another thing that I really should have said earlier in the interview. My brain's broken. I've played every card game. And when I say every card game, you
say this before, yeah.
I mean all the card games. So like an obscure History Channel TCG from 2010, I like know that Ryan Miller worked on it. I was like, dude, you made Anachronism. And he's like, nobody knows that. You know what I mean? Like, how do you know that? Nobody's supposed to know that. So yeah, we get along with Ravensburger. We're not oppositional to them. We're not antagonistic to them, but it's also not our priority to ever try to toe that company line. And I think that's just where we're going to land with Ravensburger for a lot of it.
But yeah, I really respect that. Just that the wanting to keep completely unfiltered. It's something that obviously I've always had to kind of wrestle with things over time because, like I've never made any qualms of, I want to keep in good company standing. I don't want to go over the line. At the same time, like I've got morals and I've got things that like if I think it should be stood up for, then I'll do so. Like when we had the whole Melbourne incident, like I was one of the first people saying like, this is BS, you have to do something about this, like very publicly, because I believed in that thoroughly enough. But there's a way of doing it, right? Like if you referenced the recent drama, if I felt there was a real need and it would serve a purpose to like make a video about it, then I would do that. And I stand by that, like if it continues and it doesn't go anywhere and I feel like I can make a difference, I will do so. But in a situation where like you've already done a really good job of like, discussing it, I feel like things will probably hopefully temper down now. So is there necessarily a need to do that? But again, I try and keep that philosophy of like, stand up for it if you believe it. But as you say, it must be a breath of fresh air to like not even have to consider those sort of things and just, this is what I think, I'm going to say it.
Well, I do want to like mention in relation to what you do, people might think that I'm looking at you and be like, yeah, man, I just didn't sell out. But I know that it's a lot more complicated than that. And what you do is also very important because you represent sort of like, first of all, you being able to show restraint makes it to where I talk about every single issue that pops up in the Lorcana community, but you talked about Melbourne. And that can be like a really useful tool for a company like Ravensburger to have like, oh, this is something that like we need to figure out right now because Villain's talking about it. So, it definitely, the way that you've chosen to handle this and the way that you work for Ravensburger, I think, first of all, Ravensburger like sort of needs someone like you who is, most of the time going to be like an even-tempered sort of spokesperson for the game. I think that's a really valuable role. But knows when it's time to say like, hey guys, we got to fix this. We got to fix this now. And I feel like I can trust you a little bit to do that. I think your audience definitely does. So I just really want to say I like appreciate that and that aspect of what you do. I think what you do in a lot of ways can be a lot harder than what I do, because all I have to do is say like, I'm just gonna like say goodbye to the potential paycheck or whatever and just do whatever I want. But what you do is you have a sense of responsibility to the community that you feel. You just talked about like sometimes it's hard to bite your tongue. So the fact that you're there with that consciousness at all, to me, I really appreciate it, because it can be easy to, to be a company shill, and we don't, we being the community, I don't really get to speak for them, but like people don't feel that from you, in my opinion, that like he's shilling the company.
I hope so. And again, like I thank you for saying that for a start. Yeah, one thing that's important to me is how are you going to represent the community appropriately, kind of from the inside, shall we say, working from Ravensburger, if you aren't a part of that community. That's why I try to like be in every single space, make sure that I'm watching all the content, make sure that I'm always like keeping up with things, whether it's on Twitter or Discord or stuff, because I think there's a responsibility to be aware of community sentiment and community values, or like something that may be a positive or a negative, because you can feed it back to Ravensburger. And yeah, I just think it's important to be aware of everything going on. Otherwise, how are you going to appropriately like represent the community? Which I think that the community is very lucky to have you, and I'm very grateful to have you in the community. And yeah, I certainly hope a opportunity presents itself in the future for you to do something for Ravensburger. I don't know what exactly, but like you'd be great, and I know everyone will agree with me there. You're a great talker, you know the game. So yeah, I definitely have my fingers crossed for you in the future. Talking about the future, what is the future for Podcana? Like, how far do you see it going? Do you see it developing in any way? You've upgraded friends of the podcast to co-hosts of the podcast recently. Congratulations to them. Are there any more developments, any more team members you might bring on, any more like concepts for the podcast? Like, spitball.
It's funny that you'd say team members for the Club Lorcana podcast, because we have been asked to be on like ICL as a group of 4 and stuff like that. I just think we've always said what's really important is that we're consistent. We're uploading, and that's consistent. So that's like something that we think is important to us. We also, have, been trying to make ends meet in terms of like, how are we going to make this pay the bills? One thing that's interesting is that like, we are hoping for a small return on the podcast. That's really just juxtaposed with my Twitter spaces, which I one of the reasons I think I'm getting so much thanks from everybody in the community is because everybody knows that you can get sponsors on a podcast, but a Twitter space is the end of the line in terms of monetization. So we're just trying to figure out how to make the podcast sort of bigger and better. One thing that we started doing in terms of like what's next is we've been doing versus videos against each other. Yeah. So we'll like play a match of like 2 meta relevant decks from that week against each other. And we're like seeing where that goes and how we can make that content bigger and better, basically. And so far as, there's like a little bit of room in the Lorcana content creation space for sort of like a game nights style thing. Game nights, if you don't know, they play Magic the Gathering, they play Commander on a YouTube video, and the production value for it is crazy high. And so they're one of the most watched, videos. But we think like good production value, high octane Lorcana gameplay, where you have the commentary of Zan Syed most of the time, is something that we're like aiming to bring to people. We think that would be really good in terms of content. But Zan is already signed to a professional team, so in that direction, and also I am not super interested in being on a professional Lorcana team. I would if the deal was right, which might happen, proceed if I like do really well, I think in the like remaining DLCs, I could get that offer where I would say yes. But right now, I just like don't really know what I would even bring to a team. I'm on the Lorcana Lounge, which is sort of a secret big Discord team, and they have me listed as one of their experts. So there's obviously some value that I bring, but nothing much in terms of team. But yeah, in terms of the podcast, we're just trying to get bigger and better. We think those versus videos are something that we can continually improve on, the same way we improved on the podcast, like we talked about already, day 1 versus episode 71. We want those leaps and bounds improvements with the versus videos, and we think that could be something that people really dig.
Love that. I mean, it's a staple already. As you say, very sad to see Podcana go away, one of the like original pillars of the community in many ways, and like the original competitive podcast. And it's very sad to see them go, but obviously you and Zan and the whole crew have made a wonderful name in the space over the last couple of years, and I know that you'll uphold that and hopefully welcome more competition. And that's also another thing. Like, a question I want to ask you. I feel like there is a lack of content creators in the space at the moment, and that might sound like a really wild take because like there are a lot, but honestly, I think we've lost some content creators over the last year and a half, right? Artabax and LD have stepped away. I'm forever hopeful that they will come back. I'm a big fan of the Artacast. That's another one of my favorite podcasts on YouTube. We've lost Podcana. We still have Spessy, but obviously he's dedicating a lot of time to Riftbound at the moment. I hope he will continue with Lorcana, but obviously that's a bit of a split of attention. And other names that I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but I feel like the Lorcana space and maybe the podcast space is ready for another like big content creator / creators to come out. Would you agree, or are you happy keeping it slim pickings?
So let's contextualize where Lorcana is right now. Right now, Lorcana is sort of experiencing a moment for the first time where it's no longer a new card game, right? We all experienced Lorcana from the beginning. So for us, we're used to sitting down and like, for example, in a set 1 tournament, if you looked at somebody and was like, so is this your first trading card game? They're like, of course not. That's not really possible. But now if you go sit down in front of somebody, is this your first trading card game? Yes. I started playing Lorcana 2 years ago, and like now I'm good and it's my first trading card game. So it's normal, I think, as something stops being the shiny new thing, that its audience sort of morphs and changes. So you're going to have people that are going to jump on the shiny new thing. And then you're going to have sort of like dedicated sort of like base fans. One way that Zan and I really look at our YouTube analytics is we have like in the beginning, we had like a core group of say 500 people that were going to watch every single one. And then the rest of the audience was, if this topic is cool, if this video is interesting, people are going to watch. And the goal is to grow this like core group. So I think that Lorcana's in the same way. They had a core group of dedicated Lorcana fans, and then they had people that were into a shiny new trading card game where you could win a golden Mickey, and isn't that fun? And you're starting to see it morph, and they're going to go through a small dip where the core fans are going to be the ones propping it up. And from that generation, I think they're going to be new content creators. An additional challenge, and this is the challenge for every card game that comes out in 2025 is there's not really a super easy and like trackable way to make content online. When I say that is, if I wanted to be a teamfight tactics content creator, I would simply start streaming myself playing teamfight tactics all the time. And with Lorcana, because there's not a digital client, it becomes really difficult, and you have to get creative and you have to come up with new. We talked about the space that I do on Twitter. A Twitter space is kind of a new thing. It's a new way to get content out, right? And when you make people be creative in that way, you're going to see a dip as people struggle to come up with new ideas. There's probably room in the Lorcana content creation space for people to do things that we haven't seen before. I'm talking about running tournaments that maybe stops and does interviews of its players in the middle, and I think if we talk about another like titan of the industry in terms of content creation for Lorcana, JDZ Quest really sort of made a name for himself getting creative. He's like, well, I'll show up with the backpack and I'll just cover the whole tournament on my own. And that's like, oh, so it's no wonder that he became so big, because he got creative with it. So It's a combination of two things. We're in a spot where it's no longer the shiny new kid on the block, so the real fans are going to have to start coming out of the woodwork, and there's not a prescribed way to do it, so we're waiting on basically these new innovators to come out. So we're in a, there's a lot of potential right now for Lorcana and Lorcana content creation. Zan and I are not scared of competition. When you said, are you happy to keep it slim? Like, of course not. Zan wants to fight. We're both people that want to get in there and fight. There was a little bit of friendly banter between us and the Podcana guys, right? So when they when they got more people on, and it was like, well, now there's 4. We were like, oh, that's interesting. You decided 4 was a good number to have for a Lorcana podcast. Which one's the funny one? You know what I mean? As sort of like an area we were able to get into. So we're not scared of competition at all. And I think that the factors I described, obviously that's my opinion, but I think that's sort of what's going on with content creation.
I think there's a phrase that was said to me, it's a very old one, but old school Lorcana fans will remember Jonty of the Inkwell, one of the original content creators. He claims he had the first ever Lorcana video on YouTube, and it's probably true if he says it. He's that sort of guy. But he's an original, and he reached out to me when I had less than 100 subscribers, super new, but just sort of like introduced. He was quite a big creator at the time, just to sort of say hello, extend an olive branch, and it led to him inviting me onto his channel. And I was like, dude, you didn't need to do this. Thank you so much. And he was like, a high tide raises all ships. And again, very old phrase, but I very much believe in it. It's that competition helps, right? Another old school creator, Steadfast. I miss Steadfast, man. He was one of my favorite content creators, and he was kind of my first rival. We had not similarly sized subscriber counts, but similar view counts for our Lorcana content. He was I saw him as my first rival, and he kind of dipped out of Lorcana before everyone else. Then there was Lorcana Goons, who's obviously still in the race and still killing it and still doing an amazing job. There was a long period of time I was like, right, let me check the view count on the latest Lorcana Goons video, and it wasn't meant maliciously. I'm like, yeah, let's go, man. Okay, I'm going to see if I can beat that. And it was this kind of race between us, and then Spessy came along, who ended up being kind of especially concerning the EU, me and Spessy doing similar content. I don't think we are similar. I'm very much a character streamer, as people know, which isn't what Spessy does, but the content of our content very similar. So he was my rival, and I think all these things help, and they push you to get off your butt and turn the camera on and press record, which sometimes is a struggle, I'm not gonna lie, and to be creative, like you say, and put that work in, like people like JDZ have done to get their name out there. So I'm glad to hear you say that. I think competition is a very good thing, and yeah, I think there is a space for more content creators, but I see your point about how it's there's only so many ways you can do content without kind of just repeating what other people are doing. That being said, I do still stand by the idea that, hey, you at home could start making deck list content tomorrow the exact same way I do, and you will be someone's preference. If you show your personality and try and be unique in those ways, there's no reason why you can't get a percentage of the audience if people like who you are. So I would still encourage content creators to put themselves out there if they want to, even if they're thinking, oh, this is other people do this. Don't let yourself get put off by that, would be my opinion. But I still agree with you. If you can be creative and you can make yourself stand out, then all the better.
Well, and I definitely, want to frame it this way is I think it's very rare that somebody watches Jeremy or Villain. The or to me almost never makes sense. So when you say get that percentage, it's almost like, well, it's like a force multiplier. You're going to bring other people in that are attracted to you, right? People watch Jeremy and Lorcana Villain. And if you have some sort of idea, or, the big one is if you think something is missing in the Lorcana content creation space, I think you should just do it. And I think you shouldn't let perfect get in the way of good. Your audience will appreciate growing with you. So if your first video looks like you made it out of a 10 can, and then your, 700th video looks pretty good, you're going to have day oneers that are, really high in that space. But yeah, I think that's, I think we can put a bow on the content creation topic. We're both happy to see other people, and I think that we're ripe for it. Lorcana's having a bit of a dip as it stops being the shiny new thing and starts to become, what it was always going to be, which is a staple trading card. And that's going to look the way it looks now, basically, is you see some people move on and you see some people stick around.
Speaking of trading card games, there's one other trading card game that I want to have a brief discussion with you on. We're coming up to the hour, so last 2 conversation points will make this. We'll finish on Glimmer Island. At DLC Milwaukee, you came up to me and you said, Baker, you got 2 minutes. Absolutely. What can I do? I want you to open a pack of Cookie Run cards for me. At that point, I'd never heard of it. So I opened it and I was like, oh, these are kind of cute. I love this devil cookie in particular. That's a bit of me. And then there was a night where I was just bored, didn't know what I wanted to do, didn't want to watch that, didn't want to play that, just kind of in the tank. And I don't know what led me there, but I ended up on the official Cookie Run Reverse website, which has the automated tutorial of how to play the game. And I was like, oh, okay. There's a thing you can press to just have the full card database come up. Had a quick skim. These are quite cute, actually. I think this is very simple, but the art is already winning me over. Seems simple enough mechanically. Let's give it a go. I tried out the tutorial and I absolutely loved it. And I think I messaged you either that night or the next morning saying, guess what I spent the night doing? Which is weird for me, right? Because while TCGs have been a big part of my life. My game, I said this on your space recently, my games have been Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, and Lorcana. I am an IP TCG guy. I have to care about what's on the card. So it takes a lot for me to pick up a card game, despite being a TCG fan. But there was just something about the art for Cookie Run that really struck me. And then I took the tutorial. I was like, this is fun gameplay. I can see where the skill expression probably comes in. And it just made a really positive first impression on me. How did you discover Cookie Run? Should more people be playing it?
So something I've said quite frequently is and I even said it on this podcast, so I say it so frequently that I repeat myself twice in an hour. My brain's broken. I play every card game. But you start to learn how to develop heuristics for if I should care about this card game. Like I said, when I was talking to Zan about why to get into Lorcana, I was like, it's got great IP, that's going to be a strong backing, and a potential for cards to really hold their value. So I think the question isn't like Cookie Run ? Because I do all of them, right? The question is why Cookie Run? And if you look at Cookie Run, the first thing that's interesting to me is that it's being printed by Dev Sisters. They didn't go to an alternate company for printing, which means that they think that they have the money to do this. And gacha games do. If you look at like Genshin Impact's revenue over the past quarter or whatever, they're doing better than Xbox, right? So these gacha games have a lot of resource to burn. So this game sort of represents an interesting promise. They're happy being a loss leader outside of Korea in terms of like the Cookie Run Braverse is probably going to cost the Cookie Run brand a lot because they do these app games. When that happens, you have the opportunity to go play in really, really high EV tournaments. For example, the Cookie Run Nationals in the United States that just happened in the Pro Play Game Summit. It was like an 80-person 11K, and everyone else was playing in much higher expected value tournaments, right? So to me, I became interested because of that. I was like, oh, this has the potential to be a card game that sticks around. The company that puts it on makes a ton of money, and almost excitingly, compared to Disney, we feel like Disney Lorcana has a lot of possibilities, but they also have a lot of like drawbacks. There's a lot of like, oh, well, why couldn't they just hire X person to do the digital client? It's like, well, they have to actually get through a bunch of red tape of like Disney to like accomplish these types of things. Mm-hmm. But with Cookie Run, we don't have that. This is a bunch of like South Korean, basically game developers that can do whatever they want. They don't have sort of this huge corporate red tape tying. So the possibilities for Cookie Run are really intriguing to me. Now, here's the part that surprised me. The game was sweet in terms of I would play it with somebody. I would play it with Lorcana Pros. I would play it with R&B or Kendall Burdett. And they would have a moment playing the game where they're like, oh, I'm kind of doing it. I'm kind of like doing the thing my deck wants to do. And I'm like, yeah, it feels good, doesn't it? And they're like, okay, this is cool. And I'm like, yeah, that really surprised me. The deck was cool. Or the games are cool. The decks are cool. The things that like you can do in the game are cool. And they're a little simple. But one thing I always talk about is you should have a strong secondary game. So like you'll play Lorcana, you'll be all in on Lorcana, you'll play it and you'll play it and you'll play it. And then suddenly the metagame's kind of stale. It's kind of like, like, who cares? You know, it's all purple mirrors. I don't want to do this anymore. In that instance, if you go and play a weekend where you're playing the red cookie deck versus the yellow cookie deck all weekend, you're gonna be like, wow, that was a ton of fun. It was totally different. And then the next time somebody's like, hey, do you want to do a purple mirror? We both have Cheshire Cats in play. You're like, oh yeah, because it's, you know, it's like revitalized the whole thing. So, you know, all those factors made me like really interested to try Cookie Run. I think that it functions excellently as a secondary card game. It's not as expensive. It's also not as like involved in terms of you have to be super up to date on the metagame all the time. Yeah, and so I just have sort of fallen into it and kind of fallen in love with it a little bit. It's unclear what to do about it. So many people have come up to me and been like, hey, I think half the people that are playing Cookie Run in the United States are doing it because of you. Are they paying you at all? And I'm like, no.
Well, there you go, brother. Cookie Run. You pay this man. He's doing incredible advertising for you, and I genuinely believe that you're right there. Like, a lot of people have picked this game up. Probably that source came from you, but yeah, I think the cards are really cute. I might buy a box or at least a couple of the starter decks. I have a friend group of mates that we maybe see each other once a year, and they play everything casually. Right? They'll sleeve up a couple of starter decks or low power Lorcana decks and play a bit of that. We'll play some Mario Kart. We'll do a bit of board games, whatever. And this is absolutely something that I could see like dropping at the table, going, right, lads, we're playing some Cookie Run and have ourselves a good night. So Cookie Villain pending? Who knows? I don't know. Probably don't have time. I'm too committed to Lorcana. That being said, Jeremy, I want to bring us full circle back to Lorcana. Because I want you, Jeremy, to be the 5th person that I am giving a free ticket to a place called Glimmer Island. Now, we haven't talked much about your Disney fanhood over the course of this, and maybe this is a good opportunity to kind of speak to that. Obviously, if you want to, like, people come at this from different avenues, right? Sometimes they'll pick characters and things that, because I love this character, I'm a big fan of the film, and sometimes it's a bit more strategically minded, like, okay, well, I want to go on an adventure, so I want this guy to help me with this. So you think about it in any way you want, but we're going to play Glimmer Island. I am sending Jeremy to a desert island, and that desert island is going to be any Lorcana location that there is a card of. There must be a card of it, and it has to be a location. You're going to spend 1 week there, and you are going to be joined by a Glimmer of your choice. That Glimmer character can do all the things that you would expect that Glimmer to be able to do, except help you escape the location. There is no escape, but Maleficent can fly, all of those sort of things, if she's a dragon, obviously. You can also take with you one Lorcana item to entertain you, or maybe it has a purpose for something you want to do, and you're going to get one Lorcana song that I'm going to burn onto an old school record player for you to take with you, and maybe that's relaxing music to sleep to, or maybe it's something to motivate you and pump you up. So that's what I want from you, Jeremy. What is the location you're going to spend a week in? Which Glimmer is going to be with you? What item do you have? And what song is going to be playing? And again, speak to your Disney fanhood as you see appropriate.
So I think one of the core conceits of the question is where's a place where you could spend a week? And so my location, I'm going to reveal first. Mm-hmm. I just think that it would almost be like I could do real life Mario Kart for a week if the location was the Sugar Rush Speedway. Let's go. Just getting in a car and zooming down that track and like working on those trials the whole time. I think that'd be a lot of fun. To me, it sort of stood out as like everything that I like. It's thrilling, it's fun, it's fast paced. It would just be really great. Mm-hmm. In terms of the item, I didn't want. This is going to sound so like interesting, but I didn't want to have to carry anything too cumbersome around. So I think I'm going to go with the Dingle Hopper. You know, I can be a little bit of an OG Disney fan, and I think that is the era from which I come from being a kid. So like to me, when I saw that item, I was like, oh yeah, that's a fork.
I need this.
And plus, if you're going to be stranded somewhere, then you might as well have something to eat with. And so we're going with the Dingle Hopper. Mm-hmm. The character was really tough for me because there's so many. That I would like to take. I like kind of put out of my mind that like survival would be really on the precipice of what I was trying to do. So I'm like not taking it from that angle. Mm-hmm. But in terms of like talking about my life and like getting some good advice and maybe even learning how to do a little bit of magic here or there, I think Merlin would be a good one to take around.
Great choice.
He could also turn me into various animals, and we could explore the Sugar Rush Speedway as a bird who could fly around, or as a goat who gains a bunch of lore all over the place for no reason, or one of those amazing things.
That could be strategic as well. Like maybe you can shrink you and the car to be really tiny to like get in front of the others. Like that's a whole week of possibilities to play with there.
I think that he's just such an interesting and powerful character. And then, maybe on the side, I could ask for a little bit of advice. How am I doing in life? Is this something that I could be happy with? Can I do a little more? How? And I feel like Merlin
is wise.
Kind of has that. For a long time, I wanted to say Basil because I like Basil so much. But, that's just me. I remember watching The Great Mouse Detective. So it's interesting for me, a lot of my favorite Disney movies. So Disney, the problem is that for a lot of people, Disney's like vanilla ice cream, where it's so good that we stopped picking it years ago in favor of something else. And I think that's like a big way that I really engage with Disney is that I'm like, yeah, Disney, it's great. It's good. But, this DreamWorks movie has this element that, but yeah, so I would always be a big fan of the Disney deep cuts. So The Great Mouse Detective being so prominent in Lorcana always makes me really happy. I also got super happy in set 10 because the Black Cauldron cards came out, and that was always one of my favorites as a kid. I loved the Black Cauldron. Seeing that pig made me so happy, and El Ennui and the Horned King. I was like, dude, as a kid, I would talk like the Horned King. Like as a toddler, I'd be like, Cauldron born, like I just loved it. So I was tempted to go, and so we kind of did end up with a deep cut in the Sword of the Stone. So yeah, it's me on Sugar Rush Speedway, eating food with the Dingle Hopper, and listening to Merlin turn me into animals and talk to me about life, the universe, and everything.
And what song would you have access to? I'm going to burn one of those for you as well. Disney song. It's got to be a card of it.
This is one of those moments where I just thought, what would be a really good song to play in the go-kart as we're like going,
Absolutely.
100 miles an hour down that track. And it's one of the ones that doesn't say a lot about me. It's just a song that I would love to hear in that spot. It's Dig a Little Deeper.
Okay, there you go. I like that. That's not something I would have predicted, but I respect it.
The chorus is just such I'm gonna dig a little deeper, and I'm like going, 120 miles an hour on the thing. Yeah, we could definitely bop to that one. If it's just got to be one song, that one all week would be great. I actually think that The Princess and the Frog has some of the best Disney songs since The Lion King in terms of Friends on the Other Side. Keith David's voice is incredible. And so that song to me is the ultimate, or not the ultimate, one of the ultimate villain songs. You're a villain, so you understand friend, I got friends on the, you can you can jam with it a little bit and dig a little deeper. I think is a great epiphany song, or it turns your I want song on its head. And now it's actually, you don't even know what you want. And, I can also just relate. I think I'm someone who's worked hard for a lot of my life, for better or for worse. I've had, tough outdoors, blue collar jobs. I worked for Amazon for 2 years at one point until I became a dispatcher. So sometimes I fall into that despair, and Dig a Little Deeper is a little uplifting. I might need that on the week in Glimmer Island. I might fall into despair a little bit, and I'll just have something that reminds me that I gotta dig a little deeper, pick it up.
I love that. So we've got Jeremy and Merlin spending a week at the Sugar Rush Speedway with your Dingle Hopper and Dig a Little Deeper blazing in the background. Sounds like a wonderful week away, Jeremy. I hope you'll have a wonderful time. Jeremy, we've just gone over the hour. I could fill 2 with you, mate. I genuinely could. I feel like we could shoot the breeze all day, but as they say in show business, leave them wanting more. I want to thank you once again for taking the time. Again, so close to Christmas and you're on holiday at the moment. So thank you for giving me some of your time. Time is the most valuable resource we have, so I'm grateful for yours. I look forward to seeing what the future holds for you and the Club Lorcana podcast and the spaces. As you know, I will be listening. Last thing I want to ask you is just any thank yous, any shout outs, any plugs. The floor is yours.
I mean, I wouldn't be talking to you, so I can't wait to hang out with you more, and we'll see each other at events and other things. So, can't wait to see our friendship blossom. But in terms of friendship, I wouldn't be playing trading card games. I might not even be in as good a spot in my life if it wasn't for Zan Syed. So I would really just, I give it all to Zan. At the end of the day, I wouldn't even be playing trading card games if it wasn't for him. That guy really is my best friend. We do everything together, and it's just been fantastic so far. So shout out to Zan Syed. He's, in my opinion, the best Lorcana player in the world. And so, just think about that for a minute. I'd also like to shout out to, my amazing girlfriend. She supports me in so many of my endeavors when it comes to content creation. If you want to get into what she does improv. She's an improv performer.
Nice.
She had a group for a while called Measure Island Improv. Baker, you'd really like their stuff because they're a musical improv group. I just saw one of her shows last Friday, and they were making up songs that were so good. They had choruses. They reprised the number later on in the musical. I mean, these guys are really geniuses. So, I'll send you her Instagram handle, and you can post that in the description.
Absolutely.
If you ever want to see anybody that does improv, she does musical improv, and I think she's truly talented and amazing at it. And those are going to be my two big shout outs. I think two most important people in my life right now, and really helping me be where I am. And I can't wait to see where where Lorcana goes in 2026. I'm so happy that you decided to interview me, and I can't wait to see also how our friendship and relationship develops, 100%. And like what we can do with each other.
Absolutely. This will not be the last time that you see the Jeremy and Baker tag team. But yeah, just to finish off on, I originally asked Jeremy to come on to a group podcast, which I'm planning and it's still going to happen soon. But just the more I thought about it, the more I was like, you know what? In these group podcasts, you don't get a lot of chance to do personal. It's all Lorcana. And I knew that you were someone that I wanted to have more of those personal conversations with. So yeah, grateful for your time. We're going to wind it off, and I hope you'll join me for an evil laugh when I get there. Thank you so much for watching. Jeremy will be linked down below, as will be his improv girlfriend and, of course, the Club Lorcana podcast. But that's it from us for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you're brand new to the channel, please subscribe for all things Lorcana. Hit that like button to show your support, and we'll see you soon.